Yep, once again we're talking about movies we've watched, and once again we're talking about superhero movies. Or at least I am in my cases. Thanks to subscribing to a new online film rental service, I have now been able to get my hands on one film which everyone has recommended to me but I have not seen until now. Batman Begins.
Oh yeah, that came before The Dark Knight, the most mimetic movie of all time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, this is the film that set up The Dark Knight and has since been buried into its shadow.
Yeah, which is a shame because from what little I saw of it, it was pretty good.
Yeah, to give a very short answer, it is definitely a really good movie. For those of you who don't know the plot, basically it's Bruce Wayne training with ninjas and fighting criminals until he eventually comes up with a Batman identity and develops all these gadgets, learning the ropes, until he eventually becomes the Dark Knight and saves the day from a group of extremists who plan to destroy Gotham.
Yep, that sounds like Batman. Except I have to make mention of the phrase training with ninjas. Everything's better with ninjas.
Indeed. Actually, the training with ninjas does make a lot of sense, because in the backstory, Batman did train with martial arts anyway, but it also makes sense. Like, it also explains why he goes for the costume, because one of the things a ninja says is that you have to use fear and theatricality to your advantage, and that's basically the reason why Batman ends up donning on this gigantic cape and pointy ears. A good chunk of the film is basically him scaring the living crap out of criminals.
Well, that definitely works.
So yeah, the acting and writing is pretty good. Liam Neeson plays Batman's mentor. He gives an incredibly solid performance. Christian Bale, he delivers a very good performance, although I have to be blunt, I'm really not a fan of the whole Batman voice.
Sorry, but really, who is?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the idea behind it. You know, it's a smart thing to do to disguise your voice so that no one can track you. However, there are plenty of ways to disguise your voice. Voice actors can do that professionally all the time. Lower your voice down low so that you're kind of like this. But there's a difference between lowering your voice to a point where no one can identify you and going into a fucking Slayer voice so that you wander around sounding like you've got throat cancer or something and trashing your throat every single time you talk.
I am frightened by how accurate that is. Or to quote Proton John Callaghan, I like smoking. I cannot do that voice very well without shredding my vocal cords.
I can't either. In fact, excuse me one moment.
I knew that was coming.
Oh, I needed that.
Feels like you just gargled with sandpaper, doesn't it?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like I said, I understand the principle behind it, but not only does it make it sound like that Batman's trashing his vocal cords for no reason, but it's almost impossible to take him seriously, especially when he's trying to do like the dramatic speeches, like in The Dark Knight. It was just ridiculous when he was doing this really big heroic speech, like, this city just showed you that it's filled with people ready to believe in good. It's just like, could you just calm down?
Oh my god, and the best part is your impersonation of him is so hammy, it sounds like Richard from Ogre Battle who snorted rock salt for breakfast that morning.
Okay. On that very weird. But yeah, it's a good movie. It's kind of fast-paced, but then again it has a lot of content, which I do actually like. There's not a moment where it feels like nothing's happening or they're just wasting time. It moves along at a breakneck pace, and it actually tells quite a lot. It goes through Batman's origins, it gives time to set up the villains, then goes on into an even bigger plot with one of the main villains that shows up is Scarecrow, so he's using fear gas on everyone, so it takes time to introduce that element. It also sets up the love interest character, who is pretty much inconsequential. There's also Commissioner Gordon. He started Gordon by the end of the movie, but yeah, they're setting up his character. Gary Oldman sets up a really good performance of him, as does Michael Caine as Alfred. And yeah, it's a really well-fitting story. In fact, this is something I swear is gonna get me a lot of flack from people, but I honestly prefer this movie over The Dark Knight.
I've heard people say that they do before, and after all the hype, I know that whenever I watch The Dark Knight, it's not going to be able to live up to the reputation, so I might end up feeling the same way from what little I've watched of Batman Begins.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Batman Begins, there's a lot going on, and the action relies a lot of shaking cam, but it all kind of gels together and makes one coherent story. the villains all seem plausible. Plausible being the key word, because before I go any further, Dark Knight is a really great movie. Let nothing I say here give you the opposite impression. Dark Knight is a really, really, really good movie and I'd recommend it. But the one gripe I've had with it, and part of the reason why I cannot say it's the masterpiece that everyone else is because, as I've hinted to many times, the Joker's been overpowered to the point where he's basically like Lex Luthor in Superman 64. No matter what you do, he wins.
Oh yeah, I see exactly what you mean by that. No matter what you do, it's all he ever does. He wins.
Yeah, that is pretty
in a way, I really, really, really hate to compare him to this, but in a way, he's like Eisen.
Indeed, in fact, that's actually, I think that might be an apt comparison because, okay, Joker arrives at a party and wields a knife. Batman comes in, but the Joker still wins because he throws the love interest out the window and Batman has to save her, so he gets away. Batman eventually manages to capture the Joker and get him behind bars. But he still wins because apparently, and don't ask me how, the film never really gives an explanation, he somehow got behind the siege and managed to get several police officers under his will. So they can take away two important characters and force Batman to save one of them. There's another scene later on where the Joker has this plan to show everyone that in fact, I'm not a monster, I'm just ahead of the curve. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. Yada yada yada, pretentious, chaotic bullcrap. Basically, he goes through all of that, and then there's like a great big Son of Hannibal moment where his entire plan, which basically revolves around people being assholes, comes to nothing. And Batman gives the speech where the city just shows that it's willing to believe in good and no one's like him. He's got the Joker tied up, but the Joker still wins because he's been manipulating another character to become Two-Face, who in turn... I could go on like this, but basically the entire movie is the Joker wins, and I just think it's ridiculous giving into fan hype. I'm sorry, the Joker was never that powerful in Batman fame. He was a psychopath, yes. He could mess with your head, yes. But he never had any kind of bullshit philosophy about how he's apparently sane than everyone else, and he was never a criminal mastermind, for God's sake.
Yeah, and this is the hilariously ironic part. I'm reading up on Wikipedia about Batman Begins. One of the first things Christian Bale said in the role was, he felt the previous films underused Batman's character, overplaying the villains instead.
Oh dear, that's the irony is, Batman Begins, one of the reasons why I like that is that it manages to set up the villains, but it also does set up Bruce's character and has him go through an arc where he becomes the person he is today and basically tries to make Batman work, and how he sets up the whole thing about the double life. But with the Dark Knight, it's less about him and more, well, it's kind of about him, but only vaguely so. It's pretty much all it says is that, oh, Batman made it step down one day, so he's thinking about maybe turning in the mask, but that's about it. That's the full extent of his character progression. The rest of the time, it's focusing on Harvey Dent and the Joker. That's honestly all the Dark Knight is, and frankly, whilst the tragically late Heath Ledger, R.I.P., delivers an epic performance, the way they've written the Joker just infuriates me, because he's constantly spouting this pretentious philosophy that doesn't make any sense at all. He just wins no matter what the situation is. It was just grating to me.
And the thing about the writing of his motive is that I think it was meant not to make sense, because he's meant to be the epitome of chaotic evil, so there was no way you could have won with that. Yeah,
that's exactly the whole point. He literally does things for the lulz, and here he's just, I don't know, I think these should add more like he was in Batman the Animated Series, so from what I've seen of Arkham Asylum, just a guy who doesn't take anything seriously, but here he's just, I don't know, it's...
Yeah, I think that might be another rant for another time, like, say, if one of us covers The Dark Knight, because then we can get into detail.
Yeah, that's true, we're not actually talking about The Dark Knight here, but...
Or as I like to call it, Batman Begins 2, the Joker wins.
I've got to remember that for another day, but yeah. All in all, I really do like Batman Begins. Like I said, it's really well set up, it's a good story. There's only one moment which I kinda disliked, and that was basically how he handled the villain's demise. I won't say who the villain is, because that's a big spoiler, but There's a moment where basically the villain was making fun of Batman's compassion, saying that he won't do what is necessary to save Gotham. Like I said, the villains are extremists, and it comes to the point where Batman's defeating the villain. They're fighting on a train. The guy goes, "Do what you have to do." And then Batman goes, "I won't kill you." Everyone saw it coming, but then he goes, "But that doesn't mean I have to save you." And he jumps off the train, which then crashes headlong into a wall and explodes, killing the villain. Which, I don't know, I can kind of see how that worked, but I still think it's morally questionable, to be honest.
Well, I'm not sure how accurate that is to the actual enforcement of the story because I don't read comic book, as I mentioned in last month's Monkey broadcast, so I'm not quite sure how well it works. Yeah, well, neither do I, really, but just in the context of the film, the whole reason I brought this up is that there's like a scene from earlier in the film where someone says you should kill this guy, he's a criminal, and Bruce just goes, "No, we have to separate ourselves from the criminal, that's why we show compassion. We lock them up and punish them, yes, but we shouldn't kill them." And the reason why it rubs me up the wrong way is because he was on a speeding train that was about to crash, and Batman had set up the situation so that the train would crash because there was a doomsday device on it. So, frankly, just leaving him to die is no better than just flat out killing him. I just think it's a really cheap way to go about it. Yeah, I can kind of see what you mean there.
I mean, it may just be me, I don't know, I just kind of feel it should have been better than that. I mean, maybe if Batman had tried to save him and the villain refused, that way it could have worked, but just as it is, I don't know, it just kind of makes Batman look like a jerk for that one moment.
I see what you mean whenever you say it's kind of inconsistent, too.
But, yeah, apart from that one small thing, and I just want to mention that the character of Rachel, who's the love interest, she's kind of pointless because she's pretty much just someone from Bruce's childhood to talk to, and it's implied that she'll be a love interest, but honestly it doesn't go anywhere in the movie, and it really doesn't go anywhere in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
You'll have to see The Dark Knight to know why I'm laughing awkwardly, but yeah, the point is...
Why the air has suddenly become so uncomfortable.
Yeah, to sum up, there's nothing more to say. Batman Begins is a really good movie. I'd highly recommend it to everyone. And in fact, I'd recommend it more so than I would The Dark Knight. So yeah, overall, good movie.
Very well. I think I might actually properly watch it someday.
Hooray!